Hi everyone, welcome back. I'm with Kirke today.
Hi.
Hi. Do you want to tell us a bit about yourself? You obviously have an amazing journey to get into what you do today. There's a huge backstory of why you're so passionate about what you do. So,
do you want me to talk about my work or my personal kind of journey?
Let's start with like what you do and a brief introduction of how you got to doing what you do.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay.
I will go into more depth.
When I was doing my A-levels, I pretty much didn't know anything about what I wanted to do. So I kind of had this series of conversations with my dad that went along the lines of, young lady, you will not live in my house without a job. Oh, okay, fair enough. So I went and worked at Thomas Cook's.
Right.
Which was a little bit strange, but I learned a lot about travel. And while I was there, my dad had a bad MS episode, and physiotherapists were treating him while he was having the episode. And kind of simultaneously, my brother wanted to play rugby professionally, but at the level he was playing at, he wasn't getting the care to allow him to play for continuous periods.
Yeah.
So I started to look at what I could do in terms of a job that would incorporate both of their needs to then end up with something that I liked doing. So I did a degree in osteopathic medicine, and I ended up in London to do that, and I followed it up with a doctorate in osteumology, and I added on my nutrition, and then I added personal training on, and that's kind of how I do this job, which is a bit random. I find it very difficult when somebody says, what do you do for a living?
Yeah,
because I do so many different things.
I always feel really bad for asking it. It's the first one.
But I guess my primary income until Christmas would have been treatment of patients.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's more, it's getting more varied.
Yeah.
I'm getting paid for TV stuff, I'm getting paid for nutrition content. So it's spreading out a little bit more.
Yeah, because you have the medicinal kitchen, which is your neurogenetic supplement ambassador.
A kind of resident expert there now.
Yeah.
Which is
That's
like
really
the dream
cool.
job, to be honest. I mean, when I started using their products, I remember my husband saying, that would be perfect. You love writing. If you could write for them about the products that you love, and that kind of happened.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, at the minute, everything's amazingly brilliant.
Yeah, amazing. I'm so happy it is. Because you're so passionate about what you do and you have a real care behind what you do.
Yeah.
So for anyone who doesn't know, what is osteomology? Because I'm still a bit like, ooh, not really a sciencey person.
It's a little bit difficult to describe. I spent 7 years learning how to be an osteomologist. But effectively, what you're doing is you're looking at the body as a whole entity. So some types of medicine will look at one kind of avenue, some will look at maybe the physical joint issue, and what we try and do is do an overview of everything. So if you come to see me with, say, a back problem, and you have diabetes as well, then I will incorporate my treatment for the whole person. So I will look at what foods that person might be eating that could affect the back problem as well as the diabetes. So the whole thing's incorporating a holistic view. And I do treat physically, and I do give rehab for exercises, and and I look at diet with people, and I look at the psychology of what that pain's doing as well. So I'm not a qualified counsellor, but I've been in a position of pain from an injury myself, and I think it's important to acknowledge that that person, when they get rid of the pain, suddenly has nothing to hold on to. So I try and do the whole thing, which makes it difficult again to explain what it really is. And somebody once described it as more of an art of science rather than just scientific kind of, here's a prescription. Yeah. And I like that.
Yeah, it's holistic.
Yeah. It gives me...
with medicine at the forefront rather than like alternatives.
Yes. I don't use crystals.
Stuff. Yeah.
and I don't do any of that healing hands, and I don't do anything like that. I'm not saying there's not a place for it if people like it, but that's not what I do. It's science-based.
Research.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah.
I feel like I know more about it. So you've just briefly touched on there that you have had an injury yourself.
Yeah.
And you know what that's like, and you know how because you really learnt to support your body through that, didn't you? when you had a car crash.
Yeah,
so tell us a bit more about that, because that's obviously impacted like how compassionate you are in your practice.
I think it gives me, scientifically I understand the person's injury, but emotionally as well I understand it, and that does give me a little bit more of a, I think, a unity with the patient, and they trust that I know what I'm talking about from both sides. But I had my accident when I was just 3 months from finishing my degree. So I was involved in I'm going to say car accident, but basically the van just ran over my car. So there wasn't much of an accident, it was more of just trauma. And I had to be cut out of my vehicle, and I experienced it from a completely different point. So obviously I'd been working in the hospital, and then suddenly I'm going in the hospital as a patient.
Yeah.
And that was interesting, because it gave me a different insight. But the problem I had was I had so much knowledge when I was sat in the vehicle waiting for them to cut me out. I knew that there was something wrong, and I'd said to them, look, I can't feel my legs. And the guy said to me, it's lovely, and he said, no, it'll be shock. I said, no, it's not, I can't feel my legs. And so they took me out on the chair, put me in the back of the ambulance, and they did loads of scans. They didn't know whether the damage would be permanent, they didn't know whether I'd walk, and it was a really, for me, it was the first point in my life where I'd ever had something so traumatic that I thought it was going to change my life.
Yeah.
And I learned a lot about myself, but I had 3 months where I was learning to walk again. And 2005, I had a relapse. So I have permanent spine damage, permanent nerve damage, and I have neuromuscular atrophy in this leg, which I constantly have to fight. I have chronic pain in
So
it.
is that like the muscles don't kick in when you're doing a leg day?
Yeah, the wasting.
They're always like behind the other leg.
Definitely behind the other leg. Definitely.
You're like, come on.
But they're like, they don't maybe have the same control.
Yeah.
They don't, so like single leg stuff, I really have to focus. I can do it on this leg I have to concentrate. But the actual muscle tissue, because the nerve feeds nutrition as well as an impulse to do something, because I haven't got that same nutrition to the actual muscle, the muscles do shrink. So I have to work far harder to keep the muscles on this side as big. So it's a constant battle.
Yeah.
But that doesn't bother me, because I'm used to it. Or after so many years of practicing walking, because you have to think about that step all the time. But I hate stairs that don't have a back on, because when I go up a step, I put my foot onto the back of the board, so I know where it is. If they don't, when you have open staircases.
Yeah.
I hate them.
They're not the best anyway, are they?
I'll go in the lift.
Yeah.
But yeah, you get used to it. You manage it, don't you? And I know a chap who's a wheelchair basketball pro. He's got a very, very similar injury to me, and his is degenerative. So he knows he's going to get worse.
Yeah.
Whereas there's an unknown entity with what I have. They don't know, because technically I shouldn't be doing what I'm doing. And the neurosurgeon doesn't understand how I'm doing it. So they don't really know.
Yeah.
I like to confuse them.
I think, like, your attitude, like, this is something I want to touch on more later on, but your attitude to everything that happens to you is just so positive, and just like, get on, like, it's out of your control, so you're just going to do your best. I know you have a passion for nutrition as well, and supporting yourself through nutrition. You've come up with like certain triggers that aren't good for you, so can we just chat about that?
Yes.
I'm nerdy about nutrition.
Well, the way I got into the nutrition was from 2005.
Yeah.
I had about 18 months where I was on 25 painkillers a day and still trying to work. I was back on crutches, and I got to the point where 3 or 4 times suicide was the option that I was looking at, because the pain was just so incredibly intense and constant. It just didn't seem like there was a light at the end of the tunnel. I couldn't see how I was going to get out of the situation. And everybody that I went to, I tried every treatment you can imagine. I did cupping, I did everything, anything that I thought might have an effect. And I saw my surgeon for the last time. I didn't bother going back, and he said to me, if you lose weight significantly, I'll be able to operate. So I got a mission in my head, and I was like, oh, okay. I said, how much? He said, you need to be 9 stone. And I thought, that seemed like a lot. But okay, if you're saying 9 stone and you can cure me, we'll do it. So I started to lose weight rapidly. And
you're not like a short lady.
No.
So 9 stone is not a lot
9
at
stone
all.
was about a stone and a half under what I should have weighed for my height.
Yeah.
And that was like before I even took it further than that. And I got it, but it set a seed. It set that seed in my head, and I was determined that that would be how I'd get out of this hole.
Yeah.
And I developed some really, really bad habits that I didn't even realise I was doing. Like, oh, okay, that looks like a nice piece of cake, so I'd chew it and spit it in the bin. Because I thought, you know, I'm a sensible, intelligent woman. I don't understand how I ended up in that rut, but I did. And I was about 7 stone when I got to the lightest. And I went back to see this guy, and he said, I'm sorry, it's inoperable. So I thought, I won't tell you exactly what I thought, but it wasn't polite.
Yeah.
And I thought, right, okay, so what can I do? And I got to a point where I knew I was going wrong, I knew I was out of control, and my brother had said to me, you've gone too far. And I thought, right, I need to get a grip of myself. And that was harder than losing weight. And I lost 7 stone to get to that point. And I thought, oh, I know I've got to try putting it back on. So nutrition became important, because I didn't want to just put weight on. I wanted to put weight on in a good way, and I wanted to help my pain levels as much as I could as well. So I started looking at foods that possibly could irritate arthritis, joint problems, nerve problems, and I thought, right, well, ditch them, and then just drip feed things back in. And it worked. But I ended up with a default mechanism when I lost my friend last year, 18 months ago when she passed away. Without realising it, as I'd been watching her die, I'd controlled my calories. So I realised quite, like when she passed away, that's what I'd done. And I was down to like 1,200 calories. And I had to ring a friend and say, look, I can't put myself back on the right amount of calories. It's just not working. Tell me what to eat and I'll do it.
Yeah.
And that worked, and I just did that for 2 months, and then I was back on track. So I do seem to have that default setting now, which is harder to control.
Coping mechanism.
Yeah, I think so. But I mean, it didn't happen with the breast cancer, because I had like a strategy. You know, it didn't ever feel like that. I was out of control with it. I felt like I had a handle on the whole thing. So it didn't. So yeah, I think it is things when I'm out of control.
Yeah.
Like I can't do anything about it, and I just seem to control that instead. But I'm aware of it.
Yeah.
Which makes a difference.
And
last Christmas was quite traumatic. A lot of stuff had happened personally, but the pride was the fact that I hadn't gone back to that default setting.
Yeah.
So yeah, nutrition's very important.
Yeah. And do you think your mindset has changed a lot then to view food as fuel and support rather than something to be controlled? Or
I don't think I knowingly controlled food. I was trying to control me in the situation.
Yeah.
I like food, unfortunately. I like food quite a lot. I enjoy food, which I think is important. And I think sometimes if you've had that relationship with food negatively, you don't necessarily enjoy food.
Yeah.
But I do, which is good. And what I've tried to do is develop recipes that are non-trigger food containing for myself, and that still taste like something that you'd enjoy eating.
Yeah.
So, you know, you kind of make a cake without certain things in it. It tastes great and you feel great. So, yeah, it's given me another door. And I mean, food is fuel. Obviously, if you don't put the right fuel in your body doesn't work quite well. But I know I have to, the amount of work I do, I know I have to hit a certain amount of calories. The amount of training I do, I have to hit a certain amount of calories. and so from that point, I'm always monitoring what I'm doing just to make sure that I'm healthy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I still enjoy what I'm eating.
Yeah.
I'm not living on chicken and broccoli.
Yeah.
For every meal.
Yeah. Yeah, there's more to life than chicken and broccoli
I'm
and
not
rice.
sure my guts would cope.
Yeah, I know. Maybe at the loo. You mentioned then your breast cancer, and that's something that I really wanted to chat to you about if you'd be willing to talk about it.
Sure.
Particularly from a body positive angle, because obviously you've been really brave to share your breast cancer story with people online. You've been in the Daily Mail, which is
Page through the song.
Page through the song. And you did a photo shoot after your was it a double mastectomy? And that's obviously must have been a challenge for you, but I love that you chose to still love and embrace your body, but not only that, you chose to set an example for other women going through that you can feel not only normal but sexy and feminine, even though something so personal and important to who you are as a woman has been taken away.
Yeah, I know.
So was that a real struggle for you? I know you said you had a plan, so do you feel like from the get-go you were like, right, this is what I'm going to do, I'm going to be positive, I'm going to choose to embrace my body and this change?
I don't think I'd ever been happy with how I looked. When I had my car accident, I put a lot of weight on, and I was okay, and I felt okay. And then of course I lost a lot of weight and actually felt worse than when I did before. So it took me a long time to get used to who I was. And then just as I was about getting a handle on it, there's somebody said, oh, now you have to deal with breast cancer. And I thought, okay, breast cancer is not going to get me. I'm going to deal with it how I'm dealing with it. And I'm very scientific, and I dealt with it logically and for me, but it was logical for me. And I don't think that it would be the right choice for everybody necessarily. But I looked at it from a point of view. When I went for the genetics test, she said to me it was the highest risk score she'd ever had. And I didn't want to be back in a year's time having the same conversation with the same surgeon, having had it in the other side. So when I suggested to him about having the single mastectomy because I had 9 tumours, he said, yeah, that makes sense. And then I said, well, what about doing both at the same time, considering the risk? And he said, well, no, that's very sensible. Which, for me, it felt sensible. And I didn't... There's that point when, if someone says to you, you have cancer, that becomes everything. That word is all-encompassing, you become almost a cancer person. And for me, I didn't think about 6 months down the line. I wasn't there. I was at the point where I knew I had to get through that. I knew I had to get through the operation. And my way of dealing with that was setting a meal plan, setting a fitness program, increasing my cardio so that I could get through that 7-hour off as easily as possible.
Yeah.
And at that point, I'd then start thinking further down the line. So it was in my head, it was a system of that hurdle, then that hurdle.
Yeah.
So I met my reconstruction surgeon before my op, and we were chatting away. Lovely guy, very nice guy. And he said to me, so what size do you want to be? And I went, so what? He said, well, when I'm making your boobs, what size do you want to be? And I thought, oh my God, I've never even thought about that. And I literally, all I'd been thinking of was, get this off, get this cancer out.
Yeah.
Let me just get that in my head that I'm all right. And I'd not contemplated that side of it at all. And I just said to him, I don't want to look like Dolly Parton. But you make something that suits my frame.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, he's the expert, isn't he? So I said, I don't want to say to you, I want to be a D cup, and you can't make that out of what you're going to have left. So I left it entirely in his hands. He did a lot of measuring. And then we're going to be surprised, I suppose. But that was easier for me. I had no expectation.
Yeah.
I didn't want to go into that op thinking, oh, I'm going to be a D up in 6 months' time. You know, I just wanted to deal with one step at once. And the contemplation of getting to a 7.5 hour op, that was first. So I did. I mean, I have to say, unfortunately, I loved the NHS, and the NHS were great, but their food was horrendous.
Yeah.
They had 8 weeks' notice that I had allergies, and the morning after my op, they had nothing for me to eat. Nothing. And I was like, how am I supposed to recover when you can't even offer me my breakfast? And I was like, right, ringing people, bring me something to eat, this is ridiculous. So I literally wanted to get out of there as soon as I could. Now, the standard is 10 days, so you normally in for 10 days, because you have drains and what have you. And my surgeon came around that morning and he said to me, how are you doing? I said, oh yeah, well, considering what butchery you did to me yesterday, I feel quite good, thanks. And he said, well, you can go. And his assistant surgeon was, she's got 2 drains on each side. He went, yeah, but she's fine, she's coping, she can go home, she'll be better then. And I was, because I had a meal plan written out, so I knew what my nutrition was going to be for the next 3 weeks. And psychologically that helped me, because I knew I was trying to repair my body as best as I could.
Yeah.
And I could move around, I could help the fluids to drain, instead of sitting in a hospital bed for 10 days, being very stagnant. And it worked perfectly for me. You know, I could cope with that. And then one of the funny things was I'd got into my head when I had my mastectomy that I would come out of that op with no boobs because you're having a mastectomy.
Yeah.
And he said to me, the reconstruction will put the implant in, but we won't inflate it. We'll do that in stages further down the line. And I thought, oh, okay. So I was trying to psychologically psych myself for the fact I was going to have no boobs. So when I came round after the op, and I was like, oh my god, and I felt like there was an elephant sat on my chest, and I went like this and was like, oh, they've not done it. So I tapped the guy on the shoulder and I was like, excuse me, I don't think they've done the operation. Can you just let them know? And he was like, what? I was like, no, seriously, I'm not supposed to have boobs, and I can feel boobs. Gonna go get someone.
Yeah.
Because I hit that like panic thinking, oh, they've not done it. What's going on? So the anaesthetist came back and went, no, they're partially inflated. You're fine. I was like, okay, feel better now. So he hadn't done what I thought, which would be nothing. So I didn't come out and have no shape.
Yeah.
But then they filled them in various stages, which was very weird. Very weird.
I bet you spent a fortune on bras.
Well, to be honest with you, no, because none fit.
So you just... Do they make like
No.
surgery bras or anything? No?
If you have a mastectomy and don't have a reconstruction, you have a bra with a prosthetic, and they make those. If you have jet flap or reconstruction from abdominal fat, you have more or less a normal breast. If, like mine, you have what they call permanent expander implants, they're very hard, they're completely set different, they don't move, and you literally cannot get underwear.
Yeah.
Just can't get it. It just doesn't fit. None of it fits properly. Because there's no malleability, they're very solid, because it's basically just a saline sack.
Yeah.
So you have shape, and in some ways, if you're looking for silver linings, you know, they don't sag.
Yeah.
I don't get white patches when I'm
You
sunbathing.
just don't wear a bra.
Yeah, most of the time, yeah. And anything that kind of tries to push them together is painful because they're attached into my lats.
Yeah.
So that hurts. Sports bras are really uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But I don't technically need one because they don't flop around.
Yeah.
So realistically, yeah, there's a downside. And it's like, the downside is if I'm wearing clothes that you can slightly see through, I can't wear a bra, which I wouldn't pick that shirt or that dress.
Mm.
You know, so I'm very careful with my choice of clothing because I can't wear underwear.
Yeah.
And that's restrictive. And they don't tell you that.
Yeah.
You know, that's something
So
I've kind
that's
of
why I
discovered.
asked you, because
Yeah.
there might be women listening to this that are going to have a similar type.
Well, without revealing too much, that is something that I have already got as a plan.
Yeah. That's
So-
amazing. Just because I think
There must be other people in the same situation as me.
and it's such a taboo as well,
Mm.
and it shouldn't be because happens.
Yeah.
So 1 in 3 people, is it 1 in 3 people get affected by cancer directly?
Well, 1 in 2 now.
1 in 2.
Yeah.
And we don't talk about the little things like afterwards that you're like, oh shit, like no one mentioned that.
Yeah.
I have to deal with that now, and it becomes an insecurity, or it's a big inconvenience for you.
The only non-inconvenience is somebody.
Yeah. No strap lines over.
No strap lines and no white patches.
So let's talk about the photo shoot then,
Mm-hmm.
because you obviously, at what point did you decide to do that photo shoot after your surgery?
Pretty much as soon as I knew I was having the op. Because, foolishly, I googled and I found nothing positive. The images were all negative, they were all clinical, the black taken out of the eyes, the scars, the ones that have gone wrong, that kind of thing. There was nothing positive, and I thought, well, if I'm looking for something and I'm not finding it, other people will be in that same position. And I think because I felt like I had a handle on the situation, and I felt confident that it was not going to beat me, I thought, right, if I've got an aim and I'm going to give something back, that'll help. So I spoke to a friend of mine who's a photographer, and I'd never done a photo shoot before in my life ever. Yeah.
You're quite the model now, so.
Well, that's the weird thing. That is the weird thing. I hated cameras. I hated being. I never liked my picture taken ever. But I'd known Paul for a long time, and I said to him, "Look, this is the situation." I said, "I don't want to do a photo shoot really, but I really think that I need to do one."
Yeah.
And he was great. He was great. I don't think I could have picked anybody. I think the fact that I'd known him a while and he knew my story, and he was excited about the project, I think that helped me. And we split the photo shoot into 2, and we did like a strong feminine kind of shoot, which was a bit more bedroom, couple of topless ones, which I never to this day thought I would have ever done, but they look classy. They're not like just boobs out. But
if you wanted to do that, that's right.
Well, yeah, that's true. But then I did a fitness one as the second one, and because I wanted to show that you can still look feminine and sexy, like you said, and and the strength that you need to get through it. I think there's that balance.
Yeah.
So I did the 2 shoots, and then never to this day thought that it'd end up in national papers. And then when somebody sent me a message on Twitter saying, "Oh my God, you're in the Sun," I was like, "Oh my God, really? My dad's gonna read this." And I was like, "What page am I on?" It's page 3. What?
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a bit weird, but I did a lot of stuff for Cancer Research because they'd actually been quite good.
Yeah.
And I did a lot of promo for them, and I'm an ambassador for them. And they said to me, when you do anything publicly, be aware you will get hate messages. And I couldn't understand why you'd get hate messages when you're going through something like that.
Yeah.
A lot of people that I've talked to that have done anything and telling their story about cancer have had a lot of hate messages. I have to say I got one hate message, and yeah, it kind of made me laugh more than anything, because they sent me the message on Facebook and then blocked me so I couldn't reply, and I was like, what's the point of that?
Yeah.
But
it's a bit of a coward to do that.
But yeah, I didn't. I got a lot of really nice positive messages.
Yeah. And do you think that's because of the message you had behind it? Because there would have been so many women sat there like, thank God, like someone has, has come out and been like, this is me after my surgery, and I'm still sexy, and I'm still feminine, and I still...
It was an unusual take, definitely.
Yeah.
Most people are telling the story of survival. I was kind of doing a story of, actually, you know what? I still feel great. And the amazing thing was the amount of guys that messaged me. Not saying, yeah, you look hot or anything like that, but saying your positivity has helped me through my cancer. That was odd, because I'd only associated my story having a connection with women, and I've had a lot of guys that have followed the positivity, and I don't think it's just breast cancer related. I think positivity is positivity.
Yeah.
And when you're kind of being so open, and I always wanted to be open about everything, I think that touches people. And they don't openly say them maybe themselves, but they'll send a little private message saying, oh, thank you, I just had my 12-month scan and everything's going okay, which is great. Unfortunately, it means I know a lot more people with cancer, because obviously you're kind of there for people to talk to and to connect with, and they're not all surviving. So you do know a lot, there's a lot more, I think there's a lot more negative emotions than I'd anticipated, but there's also really nice stories as well. Yeah. So yeah, and maybe it was the positive message behind it, but I did have some interesting comments from who I thought were friends, and they didn't particularly like the way I was handling the cancer generally, because I didn't cry about it, and because I didn't moan about it, and I didn't feel sorry for myself. That wasn't allowing them to be upset. So they thought one of them described me as selfish, because I wasn't allowing them to be upset about it. I said, well, you can be upset, just because I'm not being upset. Yeah. It doesn't really, if you want to go home and be upset for me, that's fine, but that's not how I'm going to handle it. So it was really interesting to see the different reactions. Yeah, and how differently people react to trauma and traumatic things happening. Yeah. Yeah. So, like you said, you've obviously spoken to a lot of people surviving and battling cancer. I'm sure there's women listening to this, unfortunately, that are either being directly affected by it at the moment or indirectly affected by it with a loved one. What would you say to someone if they'd just been recently diagnosed? What would you love someone to have said to you? Years ago. I'm not sure what I'd have liked someone to say to me, because I don't think it would have made a difference. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Say what you want. I think one of the things is like, when you have cancer, people are there for you. You know, there is support. There's support from the NHS, there's support from charities, there's support from family and friends. And the one thing that I never really anticipated was, as soon as you don't have cancer, you have no safety net. There's nothing. You have no, suddenly people are saying, well, you're all right, what's wrong? Because you haven't got cancer anymore, you're fine. And the NHS don't have that support, because obviously they have other people with cancer that they have to put the resources to. And your charities don't want to know, because you're not going through your treatment, you're technically okay. So you literally are by yourself, and that's more difficult, because when you've got the cancer to fight, you've got a purpose, you've got a battle, you know what you're doing. When you haven't, you don't know who you are, and that suddenly it's like you're falling off a precipice, and you have no way of getting out, and that is more difficult than actually battling cancer. Yeah. And that's one of the things that I'm going to hope to change this year. I want to create some kind of platform, like a safe area where people who have got to that point have then that network. Yeah. That they can look to other people in the same situation. Somebody might be 6 months further down the line than them, but you can see the progress. And I think that gives you a lot more hope. Because it's difficult. It's difficult to have that. And I think, if you've got a belief, or you can see somebody who's doing okay, then that gives you that hope that you're going to be that person. Yeah. And you don't get that at the minute. It makes total sense when you think about it. Yeah. So we've gone through something so monumental. Yeah. And come out, and it takes over your whole life. Yeah. To come out the other side and then be like, shit. Yeah. What now? Yeah. Like back in the big old world. I mean, I didn't have chemo and I didn't have radiotherapy. I chose to not go down that route, and I was lucky that I hadn't had a spread into my lymph, so I could make that choice. But if you've had chemo and radiotherapy, and then they say, okay, you're clear, you don't feel better just because they've said you're clear. You know, you still haven't got your hair back, you're still, excuse my language, knackered, because it's taken such a toll on your body. You know, but people expect you to be okay because you've not got cancer anymore. And that I think is where it goes a bit wrong.
Yeah.
And it is very, very difficult. And certainly for me, you know, things like I had to reacquaint myself with a sexual relationship because everything's different.
Yeah.
And that is new. It's like starting again.
Yeah.
Which is not what you want, not what you want to do.
Yeah.
But it is. It's hard, and they don't tell you that. And I think there's a focus on the illness and the disease, and that's great because you need to. But there needs to be a bridging service, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And I speak to a lot of people who struggle at that point more than they do when they're diagnosed.
Yeah. It reminds me of people who are going through like a huge grief in their life.
Yeah.
Their mum dies and they just sort of get on with it, and then 10 years later they have like a nervous breakdown at work, and they don't realise that it's actually linked to that.
Yeah.
And I feel like trauma can stay in your body and stay in your mind, and it will resurface at different times of your life, and it's like you say, that can be just as difficult to deal with, if not more difficult, because people aren't rushing to help you.
Because why would they? There's nothing wrong with you. It's awful to say, but I don't think, like, as a person who, I wouldn't have kind of complained publicly anyway, but I certainly, after the event, wouldn't have been saying to people, oh, you know, I'm struggling and doing this and doing that, because I didn't, to be fair. You know, I have pain, it's not perfect, there are issues, but I'm here. I think I've been lucky, because there are some people who are struggling and they do need that support, they do need that, and I think they need people to realise that, you know, they're not okay just because they've had an okay, and they need that little bit of compassion, and I think be grateful that they're still here.
Yeah.
Be nice.
Yeah. Amazing. So that sounds really, like, I'm really excited to see where you go with that.
Oh, there's some plans.
Yeah.
But they're still plans.
Yeah. It's only the start of 2018.
That's true. We're in January.
Still got the new year, new me vibes. So one of the reasons I wanted to interview you today is I think you're a really inspiring person, you're really positive, and you've used these shit things that have happened to you to, you know, enrich your life. You've enriched yourself as a person, you've enriched your health, you've enriched your career, and you've sort of used these challenges as fuel and steps to learning more and becoming more and having that wisdom behind you, and using that to help other people. Has that attitude and mindset been cultivated? Because that's a very, very admirable mindset to have, that a lot of people going through similar things might not have the courage to, you know, muster up that sort of can-do attitude. Do you think you've cultivated that, and how do you think you've done so?
I think I've probably harnessed it. I think the way I was brought up was you just get on with it.
Yeah.
And I mean, I remember playing netball and I fell on a gravel court and I ripped my knee to pieces. And my dad was the coach and he went, oh yeah, we'll just put a hanky around that. And he literally tied a hanky around my knee, and so I couldn't see the blood, but I could feel the blood trickling down my leg. And he went, yeah, come on, get on with it. Now, you won't be able to do it now, with obviously blood bin rules and everything. But he was very much, he brought us up like that to be, you know, he'd had a rough upbringing himself. He'd had to fight and battle, and he wanted us to have that same stoical attitude. And I think when I saw him struggling with his MS, and then obviously he's had cancer 3 times, that kind of makes me feel like, well, if he can do it, I can do it. And that, I think that's what I kind of tapped into. You know, he brought me up to believe that, you know, if someone says it's not possible, it doesn't mean it's not possible. You maybe just have to work a little bit harder for it. And I, you know, and the background that I came from, we had no money growing up, and our opportunities were financially limited. But they tried their best to give us experiences. So if I wanted to play the cello, you could play the cello. You know, playing rugby for my brother, or netball, or whatever. They did their best to give us those, but financially they had restrictions. And I think that I kind of wanted to make my life, how do I put this, like fitting of that beginning, and I think that I do think that everything happens to you for a reason. And I know that it's a bit of a cliched statement, but I actually do. And I think that it's not always obvious, you know. Sometimes
you're like, no, what is happening?
Exactly. And sometimes it might never be obvious. You know, it might be something that you learn a lesson that's subtle, but you're still learning from that experience. And if I hadn't had cancer, I wouldn't have had a single in the top 40 of the UK chart, and I wouldn't have had an opportunity to be a presenter on TV, and you know that those things wouldn't have happened if I hadn't have had cancer. So I have cancer to thank for actually quite a lot of things. You know, I am more confident in myself. I do love myself more than I ever have done, but that's because of cancer, which is really weird when you think of it in those terms. But I think you have to. I think some people think very negatively, and it's difficult for them to get out of that mindset. You know, I've lived with people who have depression, manic depression, and it's ingrained almost within them for them to see the worst. And I think I'm just the opposite. I will see the best in a situation, and I'll find a positive if it kills me. Do you know what I mean?
Even if everyone else around is like,
yeah. Oh yeah, and that happens quite often. Yeah, they're like, really? I'm like, no, seriously.
Yeah.
But it's a cope. I think it's the way I just have to believe that, you know. And I'm not religious, but I have to believe that I'm having this experience because there is some reason, and you know, and I think that could be, certainly with the cancer, I think that could be because I am strong enough to be able to help other people, and so maybe that's why I got it. You know, I don't know, but that's certainly the path that I'm going down. So yeah, I'm not sure you can learn how to do it though.
Yeah.
Do you know? I don't know.
Do you think it has to be like instilled in you from an early age, like you said?
I think if it is, it does help. I mean, I don't think it's 100% because I was bullied at school quite badly, and weirdly, isn't it? People are weird. I was bullied at school for being good at stuff.
Yeah.
So you spend your life then trying to not be good at stuff.
Oh God.
Do you know what I mean?
We do a whole podcast about that.
You do though, don't you?
I know.
And then you try.
Don't be too loud. Don't be too opinionated. Don't be too good
at sport. Don't be too good at your exams.
Especially as a young girl, if you were playing sports with boys,
yeah, don't beat them.
The intimidation that they would have felt.
But you know, and I did go through that phase after when I'd finished like uni, and you're trying to find your feet a little bit, and I did get to a point where it bothered me if someone didn't respond to me on social media. It bothered me if I felt like they they blanked me, or they talked to somebody else but they didn't talk to me, and that was personal. It probably wasn't, but it felt personal. And so I've had those points where I haven't been 100% in myself. So nobody's infallible.
Yeah.
But it is, you know, how you come through that. And of course, like when I said, you know, when I was at my worst, lowest point, yeah, suicide was an option. And so at that point, nothing was good. Everything was negative. And I couldn't see a way out. But again, that gave me something as a practitioner that nobody else has. An insight into what it's like to not be able to dress yourself. And it makes me a better practitioner. It makes me better at my job. So I think that's what I try to remember all the time. There's a reason it's happening, and there's a positive somewhere.
Or a lesson. Or
or a lesson, or just somewhere.
It's leading you somewhere that you were supposed to be.
Yeah, and it might feel like a door shutting, but that's because you might have to go down the corridor and open a different door.
Yeah.
It's there somewhere. I think if you're open to it. Does that make sense?
That was amazing. Cannot wait to listen back to this one when I mention it.
It makes sense when you do.
Oh, it will. Yeah, really positive, like inspiring stuff. So let's move on to the last section, which is the quick questions that I ask everyone on the podcast. So number 1.
Yep.
What are your go-to self-care habits? I know this is something that
you've
mentioned that you're not very good at self-care, you're a bit of a workaholic.
Yeah.
But anything that you're trying this year,
yeah,
you know, to really put yourself first and look after yourself.
I am trying this year. I think before I got cancer, I was really good, and I used to have a week off every 3 months, and I used to do nice stuff in that week, and you know it was in my plan and it was there. And then when I got cancer, I had 4 weeks off in the January-February period. And in my head, I'd lost obviously a month's wage because I'm self-employed. So I thought, right, I can't afford any more time off work. I need to recoup that lost month. And that spiralled into a continuous theme. I was just working, you know, and I didn't turn anything down because I daren't. And then when my friend passed away, it became not just about work. I just literally didn't turn anything down. Every opportunity.
Just to stay busy.
Yeah. Well, that and living life to the max.
Yeah.
I didn't want to miss anything because it could have been me. And it just got to a point so like the last Christmas, not this one just gone, the one before, that was I went a bit mad with the spends because I thought this is my first Christmas where I haven't got cancer hanging over my head. So I spent loads of money on stupid stuff that I didn't need, and everybody got stupid presents. And it's just like, you know, I just went a bit crazy. And then last year, I realised that my health actually was probably not the greatest because I wasn't looking after myself. And I had got into that bad habit, and I was working all the time. And my pact to myself, I'm not going to say resolution, but my pact to myself this year was to make that totally different. And I have had a massage, thank you already. And I have scheduled time out in my diary where it says do not book.
Yeah.
So that's my effort to kind of I'm not going to rectify it overnight because habits are difficult to break, but it's there.
Yeah.
You know, I'm making an effort.
Yeah.
I probably need some help.
You deserve it. Yeah, we can chat afterwards. So massages, blocking time out in your diary, so
Yes.
you're physically not allowed to book any
That's
work.
right, yeah.
Anything else that you love to do? Like what do you do on your day off that's just like,
See, I don't have a day off.
or an hour off?
That's how bad I am.
Yeah.
I literally don't have a day off.
You sound like one of our friends. Workaholics.
I don't really... I write. I like writing.
Yeah.
I write poetry. I've got some published poetry.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Anchor books, if anybody has ever seen them. And so I do like to write. I find that quite comforting. And you know, like if you have a lot of stuff that you can't get rid of.
Yeah.
And you can't necessarily verbalise it because it doesn't make sense to you, let alone saying it to somebody else. I think sometimes writing it helps me.
Yeah.
But I actually enjoy shooting. I have a gun licence.
Wow.
Yeah, and I shoot 2.2 rifles, pistols. And that's the only thing
That's a good stress
I can
reliever,
categorize.
probably.
Yeah, well, you're not actually allowed to have a person's face as your target.
Yeah. What, so it's not like in America where they have a little shape?
No, you're not allowed, not here. It has to be just a normal target.
Yeah.
But you can visualise that person. But it's literally, it is the only thing that actually I don't think about anything else apart from what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So it's quite useful.
That's
And,
self-care to me, like,
yeah.
just shut the world off for an hour.
And I'm literally, honestly, I can't, because she got to concentrate on so many different elements of getting that shot right. Yeah, it actually stops me from thinking about all the other stuff I've got to do. So that's a good thing for me. It's a bit unusual, but I tell you what, it is good.
That's really good.
And when someone lends you a Magnum, that's got a kick. That feels good.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Imagine a couple of films, you'll be fine.
Oh, amazing. So my second question is, I'm just going to check this one actually. We're on 26, so I'll ask you this one instead.
Okay.
My second question, I probably should say that again because I'll be like stumbling back onto the couch. Right, okay. Third time lucky. So my second question is, what is challenging you to leave your comfort zone and grow as a person recently?
Challenging me to leave my comfort zone, definitely TV.
Mm-hmm.
Being in front of camera was never something I had as any kind of career goal.
Yeah.
But I do enjoy it. But they've just asked me to do some acting, which is definitely out of my comfort zone. Because the only thing I can remember about acting from school was How to Be a Tree and this poem called Porridge by Clive Reach that I did for like a speech and drama.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure how it's going to go, but yeah, that's a challenge. Pretending to be somebody else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. That's
I
amazing.
know.
And I think why I asked that question is it's always so interesting to hear what's challenging someone to leave their comfort zone, because I think there's something just massive in leaving that comfort zone.
Yeah. Having a day off and leaving my comfort zone.
Yeah, maybe more self-care.
Yeah, maybe that's it, yeah.
That's a challenge. So question number 3 is, what can we get excited to see from you in 2018? What are your 2018 goals? You've already mentioned some exciting stuff, but
I think my focus is the 2 projects I've got relating to the cancer. But I'm going to Ohio in March. I've been asked to report on the Arnold's Strong Festival. So yeah, the world's strongest woman, which is amazing. I love that. I love the way people can kind of push their bodies to an extreme and do such amazing things. But to be there on a press pass is just, probably, I never imagined that would happen. So that's exciting, not for me. But yeah, I don't know how the other things are going to pan out. I have found a medicinal kitchen website's taken a little bit of a backseat because I've just been doing so many of the other things. But once I get into a bit more of a structure, so I only started doing the genetic supplement stuff in December. So trying to find a structure of my day has been a bit over, and obviously with Christmas and everything.
yeah.
So I think I'll get back to that. And that's probably about all I've thought of.
That's about it then. Not many, just a few massive projects I'm working on. Amazing. And so where can people go to follow your journey and see what you're up to?
I'm on Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm on, obviously, Instagram. Everyone's on Instagram, aren't they?
Yeah.
I'm not very good with Facebook,
Right.
to be honest. don't really post much on there.
Yeah.
But my Loma links are on there, I suppose.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm probably most active on Instagram and Twitter. I'd say.
Cool.
Yeah.
And your blog is medicinal
Yeah,
kitchen.
Medicinal Kitchen.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I do have a newsletter on there if people want stuff. But yeah, loads of free recipes. I don't like to charge people to be on there. I think everybody needs to that opportunity to just enhance their lives a little bit. So
yeah, amazing.
Yeah.
And all that will be linked in the show notes. So I'll get all them things. Thanks so much for talking to me.
No, it's a
You've
pleasure.
shared so much inspiration and positivity, and I just feel like
And randomness.
randomness and laughs. So yeah, thank you so much.
No, very
And
welcome.
thank you so much for watching and listening, everyone.
Thank
I'll
you.
see you soon. Bye.